Well, welcome everybody. Welcome once again to the crypt. I just want to thank everybody for taking the time to come and sit with us while we do some more learning and talk about some amazing topics. You guys definitely know that I am very big into natural law and talking about objective morality, and I'm just having a great time meeting a lot of amazing people that cover these topics and learning a lot. I mean, I just really enjoy interviewing people. As I tell you guys, I really enjoy learning and speaking with people that are very familiar with these topics. And I think it's great that I'm getting a lot of positive feedback too. I've been getting a lot of emails from people that are checking out these interviews on these topics, and they're saying that they're really enjoying them. They're getting a lot from them, and to continue doing them. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. It's definitely something that's in my heart to do. I just really enjoy these topics and talk to about it. I'm always talking to my friends about it and having great discussions. So I thought I would go ahead and bring in another great guest. I've had this guest on my radio show a couple weeks back. We had an amazing interview there where we talked about a lot of great topics. We kind of covered the schooling system. We covered natural law. We covered a lot of great topics. So definitely go to Revolution Radio. That's at freedomslips.com and look in the archives. And you will find that interview. It was a couple weeks ago, and then you'll get a lot from it. It was an amazing interview. So I thought I had to get him on my YouTube channel, right? Do a video interview and talk about some great stuff. And the one thing that I can say that is kind of funny is that when I do talk to natural law about a lot of people, they really don't understand what I mean. I always tell people that I'm like, when I bring up natural law, I start hearing people start thinking of Darwinism and survival of the fittest and all of that. When I bring up natural law, that's usually the first thing that comes to their mind. And then I try to explain to them what, real natural law is. And so I thought it would be great to have my guest on to we can just talk about natural law. What is natural law? How does it work? And all the things that, that topic covers. So I thought, the best way to do it is just do an interview about it. And then that way people want to know what natural law is and start looking into it. They can come to this video or go to this gentleman's website, to his YouTube channel and start learning about it. So I figured that would be the best way to do it. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce my guest right now. There we go. We have Brandon Spencer on with us today. How are you doing, Brandon?
I am doing well. Thank you for having me on this video.
Oh, it's amazing. I'm so happy to have you on here. As I was telling everybody, we had an amazing interview for Revolution Radio, and we covered a lot of great topics on there. So I got great feedback from it too. I got a lot of people that were like saying they really got a lot out of it and they enjoyed the interview. So that's why I said I had to have you on my YouTube channel to kind of have you back on here to talk about what I just said in the intro, natural law, Brandon. Like, as I was saying, I bring that up to people and immediately they start thinking of Darwinism and all of that stuff I said at the beginning, like survival of the fittest and that. They don't really have a grasp of what natural law is. So I figured, why not bring you on here and we can have a discussion and start telling people what real natural law is.
Yes, yes. And it's good that you have been receiving some positive feedback because I have, as well with all of the videos that I have put out, so there are still some people out there who want to learn this information and it's up to us, constantly put it back out there.
Right,
So,
right. Yeah, that's true. There's a lot of people, I have to admit, that definitely are very open to it. They want to start hearing more about it. So I try to guide them the best I can and tell them about it and teach them about it. And then I mention a lot of different content creators such as yourself and Mark Passio and all the other people that are teaching natural law. I try to point them in that direction. So why don't you break down? Let's start at the beginning. Wherever you want to start, let's break down natural law and start teaching people what real natural law is, Brandon.
all right, well, this approach that I am going to use, I have used it, before in my presentations. The apathetic inquiry or apotheosis is coming to an understanding in its negative
Right.
connotation by starting to weed out what something is not. So as you said, when you say natural law to most people, they assume it to be Darwinism.
Yep.
That is not what we are talking about, and it is fundamental to lay down these frameworks because when people hear these words, then then they'll start to associate these words to whatever connotation or mind control programming or however, to and start to create an idea in their own mind.
Right.
When in actuality, the connotations or the definitions that they are subscribing to these words are incorrect. So when we are talking and discussing about natural law, we're not talking about Darwinism. We're not talking about the survival of the fittest. We're not talking about any kind of like egoic, animalistic mentality.
Mm-hmm.
We're not talking about a service to self, and we are also not just talking about if it's not created by nature, then we can't use it because a lot of people will subscribe to that. Well, it just means by, like going to like the caveman days and just
Yep.
living off the land with no technology, like no means of any kind of non-natural health assistance. We're not talking about none of that.
Okay.
So it's key to, go ahead and lay the framework, go ahead and lay the foundation. So what does that, leave us with? We are talking about universal, non man made, binding, and immutable conditions, meaning they can't be changed, meaning it doesn't matter where you go in this, physical realm, in the spiritual realm, our natural law will always be in existence.
Okay.
We can't change it. We are all bound by them. So we're talking about conditions that govern, that control the consequences of behavior
Right.
and behavior for intelligent beings. So a cause and effect scenario, you know, or look at it like this: it is a universal mirror. So we put out behaviors, we put out actions into the world. Well, based on natural law, we are going to get an effect. Now, rather that effect is based in good, will determine, or um, it will be caused by what we put out.
Right.
Basically, our behaviors and our actions. So if that mirroring effect is something that is bad, then we ourselves, we as conscious individuals, as spiritual beings, are the causers and put that bad behavior out into the world. And the universe is just going to mirror that behavior. It's going to give us that same behavior back. And then how natural law also works in the collective, like species or societies, like in the aggregate. So we have a bunch of individuals who are working together, who are creating their world, who are creating, this reality, who are creating a society.
Mm-hmm.
So in the totality, in the larger scheme of things, how natural law is going to give us an effect as well in the human collective, and that effect is going to be based on what the individuals inside of that society species are going to be putting out. So that's what we are trying to get people to understand when we are talking about natural law. Is we are talking about um a collective responsibility that the universe is going to always attach to our choices, because it
Perfect.
all comes down to free will. So with our free will, the ability to choose, well, based on what we choose, there's going to be an effect, and there's nothing that we can do to escape this. Now,
Right.
rather that effect is going to be good or bad, it all comes down to the causers, and those causers are the individuals, mankind,
Right.
mankind's consciousness, and mankind's ability to think, and man's ability to use discernment. So this kind of gets into one of the points where people say, well, how can you prove that natural law is real? Because you have a lot of scientific, mindsets who think that just because you can't put something in a laboratory and dissect it down and like touch it with the hands, that it's not
Mm-hmm.
real. So this is how you can come to an understanding that that natural law is a real spiritual law, is by observing the effects that we are seeing in like in reality. You
Right.
can look at history. You can look at all the effects, all of the behaviors from all of the civilizations, and start to gather your data. And this is where a lot of people fail at, is because they don't want to put in the time, they don't want to put in that attention to start to gather the information, to start to
Right.
gather resources, to pull back, and instead of looking at it from just an individual egoic, her her persona or her perception, step back and see the larger picture, see what's really happening, see the totality of the human family, of like what are we getting as far as a species? Like, are we going more toward freedom, or are we, being steered more towards slavery?
Right.
And it is in this gathering of data then you can start to weed out, all the inconsistency, all the things that don't make sense, all of the information, and then filter all of that good, positive, information that is
Right.
ultimately leading to the realization that, that natural law is objectively true.
Right, right, and that's I'm glad you brought that up. That people don't want to take the time, Brandon, because that's what I'm running into at this stage. Is that I'm very open talking about it. I talk about it to my family. I talk about it to my friends, and I try to get them to look at videos or read a certain book or listen to a certain podcast. And that is what I keep running into. It seems, at least on my side, is that they don't want to take the time to look into it, and that is very frustrating for me. I just for me, I just can't comprehend it. It's like, why, how can you not want to look into this? I'm somebody that loves information. I love learning, and I love absorbing it and thinking about it, and doing that, like the trivium process. When I get information, I love doing that, and I'm just running into that problem, whereas I can't get people to watch anything on it. Like, I've had a few people, maybe out of the 100 people I've talked to, maybe two have come back to me and said that they actually took the time to watch Mark Passio's natural law lecture, or I should say his presentation. And I know it's a long one. It's 8.5 hours. I get it's a long slot. I don't tell people they have to watch it all at once. I've watched it many times, so I know I've put a lot of hours in just listening to that one presentation. So I got it, and I want to make sure I got it. But do you run into that problem where it's people not wanting to take the time, and how do we get around that? I mean, I guess we can't, right? We can't force people to look at stuff.
Right. You can't you you can't force them, but it comes down to just pure laziness.
Yep.
Because it's like you say, you don't have to watch it all in one sitting.
Right.
Okay, you can watch an hour a day and get it done pretty much hell within a week. Yeah, hell, a few days you may have to do an hour, and a half, but it's like, how bad do you really want it?
Yep.
How bad? It's like, how bad, do you really want freedom? How bad do you really want change? And that's the thing is these people will make excuses, and they will make, justifications, and they will make all kinds of reasons within their own psyche, that sounds elaborate toward them, but in the grand scheme of things, nothing's really going to change if we don't start to take the time to come to an understanding of this.
Right.
But most of these people will spend their time doing a bunch of other, useful stuff.
Yep.
Spending time to watch television, watching sports games, um,
Mm-hmm.
watching help mindless entertainment. But
Yep.
yet they'll say, well, yeah, I don't have the time. Okay, well, what are you willing to give up? What are you willing to sacrifice? If you sleep 8 hours a day, then sacrifice an hour of sleep, you know,
Yep.
and then he'll watch it within a week. It's how bad do people want to get it done? And um, hell, I was watching a movie yesterday. It was Prometheus, and I was trying to analyze it. And the whole thing, and we've seen this with like a lot of successful people, is just wanting to know something and having that drive and that willpower to where you will damn near do anything, to know. And the reason why I came up, with this is because the two main characters, the female, and the dude, they wanted to know, like health information, even if it brought on, a lot of unwanted costs. Is having the willpower and having that drive to want to know. And
Right.
then even when the opportunity, presents itself, is are you going to put it into the form of action? You know,
Yep.
and that's where a lot of people lack because they don't have the drive, they don't have the willpower, and that's the reason why we are, going toward that, the whole prison planet, the whole slave camp, because
Yep.
people don't want to take the time, people don't want to take, the sacrifices, people don't want to develop the courage, people don't want to develop, have more and more, willpower, have people don't want to put in that time, focus, and have attention.
Right.
And the reason why they don't want to do that, hell, laziness and mind control. It's simply mind control
Mm-hmm.
because people have, taken on these ideas, have these thought forms, these negative patterns, these means of programming, ways of seeing themselves, ways of seeing their world. So ultimately, what they are saying is they aren't capable of taking in the time. They don't
Mm-hmm.
want to take that, have responsibility, and that's all been put there by the social engineers,
Yep.
by the dark occultists, by the ones who are staring and molding people's mindset,
Yep.
because with all the information that's still, like online, the One Great Work Network, and all the people who are talking, about natural law. It's only a few of us, but there's still up, like thousands of hours of videos,
Yes.
that are online that people can come to this understanding. It doesn't take much. Like, yeah, it's going to be like a 500 to 1,000 hour, learning curve,
Yep.
but once, but it's like once you start to learn it, it'll start to make more sense, and you will start to see changes in yourself.
Exactly, 100%. And that's the thing. People don't want to spend the time. That's the one thing people aren't willing to give up. I find is their time. And that's the thing that it's amazing to me is that, as you were saying, like the information is out there, and we've never in history have had information so easily available to us. Like I think, and see people not taking advantage of that. And I know that a lot of people think technology is a bad thing and stuff like that. But if you're using it the right way, it's definitely can be used in a positive way. I know it is for me because I spend my time learning about different topics, and I'm learning, always trying to learn. I'm using it as if I'm going to use technology, I want to use it in a way that's positive and not just waste my time watching and playing games and stuff like that. That's how I am, and so it's really upsetting that you see that people don't realize how much information is at their fingertips and they won't take the advantage of that to start learning about these topics that are so major that people need to learn about. I mean, like this is the whole thing here, and that's what I try to tell people. Like that's what all of these distractions are put in place for, as you were saying, sports, TV, movies, all of it, music. You go down the list, politics, all of it, religion, is to distract people from looking into what we're going to be talking about. This is the what they don't want you learning about is how real natural law works. And that's what I want to cover with you, Brandon. I want you to teach people what is natural law. So wherever you want to start with that, let's dive into this topic.
All right. And remind you, we're talking about pretty much the glue that's going to hold up, a society. Being
Exactly.
able
Yep.
to, being able to understand objective morality, being an ethical person, like having a moral way of living and having an ethical way of living, because it's not just you or myself. We are constantly interacting with other individuals, so we all have to have a set of core principles, a
Mm-hmm.
set of universal principles in order for us to operate.
Yep.
And anyone who violates those principles are in the wrong. And that's what we are trying to get people to understand is when you come down to know, how what is right and how what is wrong, how natural law works. You don't give any favors for anyone. You treat everyone on the objective plane because you apply those same standards to everyone. It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
matter if this person is a friend. It doesn't matter if this person is a family member. It doesn't matter, if this person, is a stranger. You treat them the same way as you would not want to be treated, and you don't engage in wrong, immoral, behavior.
Right. And then,
And
when you look in the world now, Brandon, you can definitely tell that is in the aggregate. If you're looking at the world, or is humanity acting with morality? And no. I mean, when
yeah,
you just see how the world is going, it's so obvious to me that it's not, and that's why this information is so important.
yes, and that's how you can start to apply these truths. Is take the aggregate of the consciousness of most people in the world.
Yep.
Would you say that it is a high level of consciousness? No. Would you say that it is made up of people who understand objective morality? No. Would
Nope.
you say it is made up of people who have at least started, like a small form of shadow work? Hell no. So, so whether the whether the effects, when you be honest with yourself and you look outside of your window, what are the effects that we are seeing worldwide? We are seeing more government. We are seeing more people fall for the trap of mind control. We are seeing more people fall for the propaganda. We are seeing more violence. We are seeing, how politicians, anyone in charge, anyone in any illusion form of authority, we are seeing them get more power. We are
Yep.
seeing these corporations, just slowly draining our pockets. We are seeing a bigger divide and conquer, rather it be Russia, versus Ukraine, black versus white, Democrat, versus Republican, the whole divide and conquer in the way of politics. Um, uh, we still have what feminism, well, versus MGTOW. It's just all of these things that are going to have divide us, from each other. All these means of segregation, all these labels, all these means of dissecting,
Mm-hmm.
all these means of fragmentation. These are all put there. All all of this shit is put there for propaganda and mind control to
Yep.
keep people from understanding what objective morality is and what the true right is and what natural law is.
Yep.
Because this is what they don't want you to know. Because this is the glue that will start to merge and unite and bind us together with our true spiritual essence. You know, so
Right.
so we're talking about seeing these things in manifestation because people say, well, well, how can I see this in reality? Help, be honest with yourself. Be honest with yourself. And this kind of gets into the whole natural law expressions because natural law is going to express itself in these two means of polarity. And this gets into the hermetic principles, how polarity, how everything is dual, everything has its positive and negative. That doesn't necessarily equate to good or bad, per se, but just everything that is in creation has its dual nature. It has this
Mm-hmm.
dual aspect of masculine and feminine.
Yep.
So you have the so you have the two generative polarities that are always, operating.
Yep.
Up
Oh yeah,
power.
perfect. I love that you're bringing up a slide. This is amazing.
Yeah.
All right, let me
And
just go ahead. I just want to switch my screen here, Brandon. I just got to ask you before we get into this: are you clicking a pen? Because I hear a clicking in the background once in a while. Are you clicking a pen?
well, that was probably my mouse.
Oh, okay, okay. Sorry, I'm just wondering. It's not too bad, but I'm just like, is he clicking a pen or something like that? But no worries. I just wanted to ask you. So no worries, Brandon. Let me just go ahead. I
Are
want
you
to change a different screen here just so we can actually see this a lot
are
better.
you
There we
hearing
go.
the sound?
Yeah,
Are
that's the
you
sound I'm
hearing that
hearing.
sound
Yep.
constantly?
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
well then it's probably my headset.
okay.
Yeah, like when I turn my head, the mic is probably picking it up.
Okay, okay.
I
It's
hope it's
not
not
too
too.
bad. Yeah, it's not too bad. I just wanted to ask. So, yep, go ahead. And I got this definitely up on a bigger screen so we can start looking at this and you can explain this for us.
All right. Sweet. So we have these two generative polarities that just exist in creation. This is what we are, talking about when we are talking about consciousness and fear. You have love and fear, and these two polarities are not created by man; they are just in existence. These two polarities will always be in existence, but it is up to the individual to assimilate, to harmonize with either of these polarities. So you have the positive polarity in the manifestation of love, or what we say is consciousness. This is expansion. This is wanting to learn. This is wanting to grow. This is wanting to take in information. if you ever been in that mindset or in that modality of love, then you'll open up yourself to take in have more information. It's easier to learn things. It's easier to learn a language. It's easier to learn any kind of hobby or trait, any form of modality. If you have that open mindset, because in this state of love, you are not closed off. The closed off mindset would be in the form of fear, unconsciousness. In that mindset of fear, you can't use critical discernment. You don't filter in information. You may actually turn down a lot of information that may be beneficial, like the teaching of natural law, the teachings of objective morality, and all of these concepts as far as principles and integrity. Because in that mindset of fear, you don't want to learn, you don't want to grow. You are shutting yourself off from others. You're shutting yourself off from true potential. You're shutting yourself off from true creativity. You're
Right.
shutting yourself off from your imagination because the imagination is dead. It starts to decrease. It starts to wane in that mindset of fear.
Right.
Because remember, the mindset of fear is supposed to help us. It's supposed to help us overcome, um, certain situations.
Right.
Rather it be a life or death, or there are some good forms of stress. That can help you overcome something. Because without it, we would just kind of fall into a form of conformity. He'll just going, he'll long, he'll fall, he'll in a comfort.
Right.
So that little bit of stress is supposed to help us, push ahead. He'll keep climbing that ladder, keep wanting to better things, keep wanting to discover. He'll keep wanting to search, keep wanting to go deeper and deeper and never feel comfortable, where you're at. That is the healthy form of, like of stress. But the problem is the social engineers have created an environment of fear
Oh, for
and
sure.
staying,
Yeah.
yeah, and staying in this negative polarity of fear
Yeah.
24/7
Oh,
is not.
that's all they pump now, right? Like I mean, on social media, on the news, anywhere you go, and I've been saying that for years now. It's just constant fear. It's fear, 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 and then when one fear, I always say, when one fear ends, they have another one lined right up, and so we had when we were talking about COVID-19. Then all of a sudden now there's not much talk, at least where I am, about that. And now we're talking about what's going on in the Ukraine, right? So they're always got another line of fear to give people constant. It just seems that that's how people are in that state all the time these days.
Yeah, we saw this during September 11th,
Mm-hmm.
2001. Like we've seen this during what the Boston bombing and whatever, like false flag they hit us with. Um, you, you looking, you can look at all of the so-called government atrocities that we've, seen on the mainstream media. Like I said, how Ukraine, how COVID, what BP oil spill, like all of the stuff. Like there's always some form of fear. There's
Yep.
always some looking in. There's always some scary tactics, some scary group. How ISIS, what weapons of mass destruction. There's always something that's that we should be afraid of.
Right. Yep. 100%.
And this is the generative polarity because this is what we choose to create with. So look at the state of the world and be honest with yourself and ask yourself which one of these polarities has majority of the human family chosen to create with. Because if you were to say it is love, you are lying to yourself.
Yep.
We have sadly chosen the polarity of fear. Because
Yep.
just look at the manifested result on what we are seeing play out. If it was love, people would be coming to an understanding of knowledge. People would be, hell, not wearing, still wearing face diapers. Hell, people would still not be lined up to get jabbed. People would
Mm-hmm.
still, hell, not be, hell, watching the mainstream media. People would not be voting. People would not be paying taxes. People would not be, advocating for slavery. Which is the government. So
Yes.
it has to be fear. By law, it can't be love because in a state of love, you can't produce fear. Just like vice versa, in a state of fear, you can't produce love. These these two polarities are the complete antithesis of each other.
Right. Right. And I think
And
people should realize too, Brandon, that they want people in this state of fear and reacting. They don't want people. They don't definitely don't want conscious beings who are thinking clearly and using objective morality and all. And they don't want people like that. They want people in this state of fear because that it's impossible to learn when you're in this state, and they know that. That's what I try to tell people, is that you're dealing with master psychologists that know people, and I've said this many times. They know the human condition, they know the human brain, they know how to play humanity perfect, and I don't think people realize that what they're up against. And I call it like just, it's pure evil. Like they're just doing this on purpose, and they want humanity in this state. And the last thing they want is people learning about what we're teaching right now, which is natural law and objective morality and these topics. They do not want that. They want this state of fear because it's easier for them to control everybody if they got them in this state of fear and not thinking. Correct?
yep, yep,
Right.
because in that state of fear, you'll always look to be rescued. You'll always look to
Right.
share responsibility because you want to get out of that mindset as soon as possible. So you always look outside of yourself. You'll
Yes.
always be in that form of reaction. You know, so
No, but
so
people look for the government. They look to religion. They look, and they, as you said, they're when they're in that state of fear, they want somebody to help them get out of that state. So they're very willing to give up their rights. their morality, whatever it takes to get out of that state of fear. So that's why they turn to the trappings in the religion of government and the basic religions that everybody knows about. Definitely.
That is correct. So, these generative, polarities, these are what plants the seed within our minds, within our hearts. And these seeds start to grow. So, what's next? You have the initiating expression. This is the starting. This is the beginning level. This is the generative, level. Um, because once you take in that love, that is the force of expansion. That is the force that leads toward growth. That is the force that leads you toward knowledge, taking in truth. You wanted to seek truth. You taking that time that people don't want to sacrifice, that time that people don't want to develop, and you'll read those books. You'll take in that information. You'll listen to those podcasts. You will seek out that knowledge. It's almost like the young initiate that goes and seeks out the teacher because you want that knowledge. You have that desire. You have
Hmm.
that willpower. You want to know. You know, those internal juices start to flow within yourself. You know,
Yep.
you will do whatever you have to do in order, to have a know. You'll sit down and watch Mark Passio's A Natural Law, a seminar.
Hmm.
You'll sit down and watch it multiple times. You won't come up with excuses on why you can't get it done.
Yep.
This is when you learn, how you will get it done because you want that knowledge. You have that thirst. And a lot of people don't have that. A lot of people don't have that.
Yep.
Here's what they do have is ignorance. Because that fear, that form of unconsciousness, that form of shutting yourself off, that form of the opposite of love, closing yourself off, that leads to ignorance because you don't want to know. You'll say, "Oh, I'm good. Oh, I don't have the time. Why would I need to learn about objective morality? Health. I'm getting a six-figure paycheck. Why do I need to learn about right and wrong?
Hmm.
Why do I need to learn about this stuff? Like I'm getting free money from the government. This is ignorance because you don't want to take in that knowledge. You have closed yourself off from knowledge. You've taken that knowledge and you've slapped it away.
Yep.
And that's a dangerous place to be in, extremely dangerous place to be in. And this is sadly the state of still of most people in the state of ignorance because they are denying truth. And when you deny truth, you are denying creation, you are denying God.
Yep. 100%. And I agree, Brandon, that and let's be honest, the people that are watching this, like, think of the world like Brandon said. Think of the world as it is right now, and be honest with yourself. Like, for one moment, just sit back and be honest and say, are we living in a world full of ignorance where people are just, like Brandon said, they're not willing to look into this information. They'll have every excuse in the book, and I know because I've talked to people and I hear these excuses firsthand. I've heard a lot of them. And so, are we living in a state where people are taking in information and looking into these things, or are most people happy? That seems to be the happy. I don't know why. I can't fathom why they think the world's a great place, but the way it is. But are they happy in their ignorance? And I definitely would say they're happy in their ignorance, Brandon. 100%.
Well, we hear the term that that ignorance is bliss.
Yep.
I think I think they think that they're happy, but at their true state they are not happy. I think at their true state they are suffering.
Right.
They hate themselves. Like they have a lot of deep, dark trauma, have psychological work that needs to be healed. And someone in that mindset can't truly be happy because you can't truly be happy if you are a slave.
Yep.
Because to truly be happy comes out of that state of love. It comes out of the state of consciousness. It is impossible to truly be happy in this this fear in this modality
Right.
because the psychological framework doesn't it doesn't produce those forms of dopamine in in that mindset of fear. It help it produces other forms of stress of and then gets put all throughout their body. And
Yep.
that's why in that state, you go into fight, flight, or freeze,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and we are not meant to be in that state 24/7. So fear of ignorance, denying of truth.
Right.
And this is why the universe has not come to our assistance because not enough people are in this column of love. You know, we hear in all of these spiritual camps and have these new age teachings, they're talking hell about love, but people just think it equates to like the eros form. It's like no, it is a higher form of love, that form of agape, like truly wanting to expand your consciousness,
Right.
wanting to align, wanting to grow. You putting yourself above your ego, not throwing it out of the window, but you put the ego in check.
Right.
So, we talked about love, we talked about fear, we talked about knowledge, we talked about ignorance. And one thing about these initiating expressions, this is the first step of the trigger, because this is where you start to seek out have information. And what
Yep.
is information? It's knowledge, knowledge of truth. You're taking in this information. And why are you taking in this information? Because it's going to be filtered. It's going to create condition. It's going to create a response within yourself. So this is the initiating step. You are laying and paving the platform for something to come out.
Right.
We have the internal expressions. This is what happens inside of us. So in that love modality, you've taken in the knowledge that should lead you toward sovereignty. Because this is the internal manifestations, that internal creativity being created within yourself. And it should lead you, to that path of sovereignty. You knowing that you are your own king or queen. You knowing that no other being has any form of authority over you. And you knowing that authority is the biggest scam, the biggest illusion in man's existence. Thinking that some other being has a right to rule you, thinking that some other being has more rights than you, thinking that a group of people have more rights than you, thinking that a group of people have been divinely selected to rule you.
Mm-hmm.
This is one of the parts where people fail because they'll say that they are awake, they'll say that they know what's going on, but then they still believe into the biggest hoax, which is the illusion of authority,
Exactly.
external
Yep.
authority. A lot of people don't make it to this step. They really don't, because this is the internal monarch. That means you have gone within yourself. You realize that you are your own king and your own queen. You are sovereign. That you can't rule anyone else or any other being outside of yourself. Yourself is the only being that you can control and that you can rule. The only being.
Yep.
I can only rule myself just as though you can only rule yourself.
Yes. Yes. And another thing is that people have to realize that we can't give these rights to other people too, right? Like we can't give hand over these rights to government and just say, okay, you get to make the rules, and and that line. Like I think a lot of people, that's what they do, is that they, when they look to the government, they think, okay, we're going to give this group of people different set of rules, and they have the right to make these rules whenever they want on a whim, and we have to start realizing that we don't even have the right to give those right. We don't have the right to even do that. We can't give these rights to other people. We all have them,
Right.
and we're not allowed. We just can't give them away like we're doing. That's a big part of the problem, as you're saying.
Yes, yes. We can't give these rights away. We can't create these rights. And also, too, these rights don't come from man and they don't come from any group of men. And this is another part that people forget. These rights don't come from a piece of paper, from any document, any
Right.
constitution, or any tablet or cuneiform.
Yep.
You know, and I would say that hell again, because a lot of people will say, well, the Constitution grants our rights. No, wrong. If you can write something down on paper that grants you something, then another psychopath can write something down on paper that takes away that which was granted.
Yep. Yep.
And this shows how deep the mind control goes because a lot of people will still say, oh, this document, oh, this tablet, oh, have this uniform, tablet or this parchment, it gives us our rights. No, wrong. Your rights come from being in existence. Your rights come from you being alive.
Yep.
You can never hand these rights over. Never. You can forfeit them, but you can never give them to someone else because that can't be done in reality. Because
Exactly.
you are always there for yourself. It's like who is the first responder toward? toward any situation. Like in reality, the person who is having, have that action
Yep.
or having a manifestation. So you will always be responsible for your rights and for your own well-being and for your body. And it is in this understanding of this internal monarchy that you know that taking that responsibility, sovereignty. So what is the antithesis of that? Confusion. Now, mind you, just look at how this fear modality is set up: fear, ignorance, confusion. Is confusion not something we are seeing in this world today? We've seen a lot of confusion
Yep.
like over the past years, you know. So the biggest thing that I want people to take, who is listening, to this, is take these these both multi columns and then apply it to the real world. Apply it to reality, no matter where you are at, and tell me, is it in this column of love or is it in this column of fear? I
Yep.
guarantee you, I'm willing to bet my life that it's going to be in this column of fear.
Yes.
So
Yep.
in this mindset of confusion, this is the internal confusion because you didn't take in the knowledge. You wanted to stay ignorant. Why did you want to stay ignorant? Because you bought into the fear. So you have internal anarchy. What is anarchy? No rulers, no masters. Well, ultimately, who is ruling yourself? Is it you? Is it your consciousness? Or is it social engineers who you have never ever met and never ever will meet?
Yep. And I can guarantee that people, we both know very well that it's the social engineers right now ruling everything.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. They have people in that mindset of confusion, and in that mindset of confusion, the conscious mind can't take in any kind of moral, reasonable, information. So it can't do any form of thinking because in that state of confusion, you're going left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right. You don't know what to do.
Yep. Mm. And I saw it firsthand, Brandon. Like I've told people a couple years ago when the whole virus thing came up, I got to watch my words on YouTube because you start saying keywords and they really get up crawl up your ass for it. So, but a couple when it started happening a couple years ago with the pandemic and that's what got me off my ass, Brandon, was I saw the confusion in people, I saw the fear, and what scared me the most was I saw how powerful the brainwashing and mind control was going on around the world. I couldn't believe it. What how quickly people just rolled over. I was really shocked, and I didn't think I could be shocked that way. But that's what got me off my ass, and I definitely you see it even to this day with what's going on with that whole thing with confusion. It's rampant.
Yeah, because in that state of confusion, you are more susceptible to more manipulation, more
Yep,
propaganda, mind control. Because it's like being lost in a maze. Most people will never find a way out.
you're right.
They'll keep going back to the hand that's poisoning their well.
Yep.
Keep going back to that help user. This is the Stockholm syndrome. How the people who are falling in love, with their abuser because
Mm-hmm.
they are confused. How they are trauma. How traumatized. They've had trauma associated and done to them, and they never healed that trauma. So
Right.
how that trauma is constantly trying to manifest itself to be healed, but the individual doesn't know how to handle it. It doesn't know how to work with it. It doesn't know how to work with that trauma. So then, therefore, they are taking that possibility of it coming to the surface as a means of confusion, and
Yes.
then they're pushing it back down more and more into the subconscious,
Right.
which is creating more and more problems, more and more chaos. And that's why we are seeing the the world pretty much deteriorate around, hell, just around everywhere. We are
Mm-hmm.
seeing the breaking down of pretty much everything because people are stuck in these negative, fearful modalities.
Right. Yep. 100%. Yep.
And this would be the processing step of the the triggering. How you've taken in information, and it's creating something internally within you because the confusion happens internally. Just like the sovereignty, that is the internal process. Because That confusion is you look at someone else as the ruler of you. You look at someone else as the mommy and daddy, as the authoritative person, the one who can tell you what to do, the one who can create what is moral and what is immoral, the ones who can stir humanity in whatever way, shape they see fit.
Yep. Yep.
And and also to not only apply it to the reality that we live in, you can apply these to every civilization that have come before us. And then once you do that and you take in information, you will see why every civilization has failed for the same reason. Because they all went into modalities of fear, ignorance, confusion, which led to slavery and chaos,
Right.
the breaking down and destruction of that society.
Yep. And that's a very important question to ask at this point, Brandon. And I think people should ask: Are when you look around the world, are we living in freedom or are we living in slavery? Because that is such an important question. So, and it's next on the list, man. Let's cover it.
Yes, so we're getting down to that external expression. So what do we see here in the societal? You have the individuals within that society who have taken in that love, who have taken in that knowledge, who have taken in that knowledge and they understand their true sovereignty. So how would they manifest that self in the form of behavior, in the form of action? Would that not lead toward freedom? Because everything that's being pushed out within them would be based on love.
Hmm.
That would equate, that would be the manifestation, that would be the state of freedom being created because they have taken in the information, they have gone through the internal process, and they are going to want to push that out in the form of behavior. So that would be the external anarchy because how remember they understand that they are the true rulers over their own self, that
Right.
no other being is any form of authority. So if people started to actually not only have it in the mental realm, but practice that in the physical realm, they would create that which is based on what they know, and that would be freedom. That's why
Right.
you have external anarchy, no rulers, no masters in the external plane, meaning there wouldn't be any government, there wouldn't be any king, there wouldn't be any slave masters, there wouldn't be any government.
Yep. And I think that can you just let people know, Brandon? Because I know when I bring up anarchy, I think, and I've had people tell me, like when I bring up anarchy, they think that means chaos and like Mad Max is going on outside and there's no law, no nothing. It's just all chaos basically. Let people know the real definition of anarchy because a lot of people don't know what real anarchy, like what anarchy really means. So can you break that down? Just because it's in this category, and I just want people to understand what real anarchy is, and it's not what they tell you it is or promote in movies and stuff.
Correct. And one thing I always tell people is, how is it that people all over will have the same wrong definition or
Yep.
idea for
Good
a
point.
word? That has to equate to mind control. I mean, because you live in Canada, I live in Atlanta. I talk to people all over, and they all say the same thing. As people still don't understand what true anarchy is.
Yep.
So how is it that people all over can have a wrong definition or a wrong understanding of what a word is that can only equate to some being, some institution, some group of people put that wrong definition or installed it in all of their minds.
Right.
So the word anarchy does not mean chaos. It does not mean anything bad. It does not mean anything evil. It simply means without rulers, without masters, and Greek, without, not present, not having, archy, Greek, archon, archos, meaning master or a ruler. And it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't necessarily just like a master in like the government sense. It was a master as, like I am the master or the owner of your life. I am the master and you are the slave. It was the master of, like talking about physical owning of property.
Right.
So you're talking about slavery. So you're talking about no slave masters, no one trying to rule us, no one trying to enslave us. That is what true anarchy means because that is what true freedom means. And the reason why they don't want you to know what this word means is because they understand the power of words. So if they can obfuscate these words in people's minds, then people will buy onto these wrong, negative, um, have definition and connotations, and then they will build up their mindsets and the worldview based on these incorrect thought forms, all these incorrect definitions. And that is how mind control works. That is one of the techniques of mind control, you know, because it's like we're seeing in today's day, and they think that they can change the definition of words. You know, how they think they can change what a woman is or what a man is or what rights are. You know, how they want you to think that everything is up for interpretation, everything is up for opinion. You know, this whole postmodernistic, how mindset, how that nothing is truly objective, nothing really has true, values or moral principles. They want you in that mindset because then they can change history or they
Yep.
can change anything, and that keeps you in that state of confusion because you can never come to any form of understanding if the definition is always changing because there's no
Exactly.
clarity, there's no meaning. Like once you truly understand this stuff, you will laugh hysterically on how simple and easy it is.
It's true.
But
Yep.
yep, but how the problem is the social engineers have got to people's minds before they was even able to walk.
Hmm.
Like that's the sad part about it is
Yeah.
people don't own their own minds.
Yeah, because they're definitely
So,
not teaching the trivium in school and stuff like that. That I could guarantee. They're not teaching people to think like this. They're like the young children in school. They're not. This is not what they want them to know.
right. So we're talking about freedom, the external expression, the positive manifestation of love and consciousness. How you want to grow, you take in the knowledge, you expressing yourself, you giving others the same wisdom. How you following the golden rule. Do not do unto others that which you do not want done to yourself.
Hmm.
So you are being the change that you want the world to be in this external expression and freedom. So
Yep.
you are that change. What
Yep.
would be the opposite of slavery? That's where you have external monarchy, you know, because the one above that was internal anarchy. You not wanting to rule yourself. There is no master. So there's an internal anarchy. And remember, anarchy means no rulers, no masters. There has to be a ruler or a master over the self,
Right.
meaning you rule yourself. You being responsible for what you think and for what you feel and for what you do and what you create. So, in this mindset of slavery, if the individuals within the society don't want to be responsible for themselves, there's always going to be some psychopath, some group of people, some gang, some criminal organization, some governmental figure who's going to have this knowledge, who understands how these psychological frameworks and how natural law operate. So they'll realize like, hey, if you don't want to rule yourself, then I'll rule you.
Right.
That abusive person, who has an even more traumatic, fucked up mindset may come to be in the form of authority because the people will vote him into that role, will put him in place. Because remember, they are stuck in fear. They are stuck
Yep.
in ignorance. They are stuck into confusion. They can easily be manipulated, can easily be led astray by people who sound good, who talk good,
Hmm.
how they may dress good, how they may look good. But all that can be a show, because in that ignorance, you don't understand how your psychology works. You don't
Right.
understand, how your mindset works. You don't understand how your drive works. You don't understand how your libido works. And most important, you don't understand how natural law works and how natural law expressions work. So therefore, if you do not know how these expressions work, then you can be manipulated because you are ignorant of that. Just like if you don't know how to read and you are ignorant of, like of that of reading, you can easily be manipulated.
Hmm.
And we've known this throughout history, and that's why they always kept slaves ignorant. Didn't want them, how to read, wouldn't teach them to read. It would be
Right.
against the man-made laws to, teach slaves how to read because once they knew how to read, then you know you can start to level the playing fields. Once you take in that knowledge, you can start to, help level the playing fields to create conditions or understand the conditions that will be necessary, necessary are that can be present in order for you to escape or erode those conditions.
Hmm. Right.
Simple, simple,
It is,
simple.
and I think that's the problem too, Brandon. Is that because you're saying how like how they manipulate words, and I find that with when you mention slavery, I think a lot of people think of, like as soon as you say slavery, they think of chains and being shackled and stuff like that. And what we're trying to tell people is that this is slavery of the mind. Like that's why these master psychologists and social engineers that are doing this, they're making slaves, and it's enslaving the mind is what I try to tell people. Like it's not the slavery that you think of when you first think of slavery, with, like I said, the chains and the shackles and all of what you think of when you think slavery. This is slavery of the mind and of the soul and all of that aspect, which I think people have to start realizing.
Yeah, just stop looking at things from your own perspective.
Yeah.
Yes, slavery is what is real, but there are forms of mental slavery.
Right,
You
that's,
know,
yes, exactly, that's what I mean. Yep.
psychological slavery. Um, that and people don't really consider that. And that's how the aspect of mind control works. It's just getting you to look at something from a one-sided, narrow, position.
Right.
Because just looking at it one way, you don't engage in that creative, creativity, seeing things from a bigger picture, a wider scope, a wider view. You know, where that comes from the intuitive, have feminine, creative imagination. Have mindset of us. I think I know what that clicking is. Yeah, there's a dog that's constantly barking like in the background. So I hope it's not coming in too bad. But
No, it's
yeah,
good. No, we're good. It's okay.
well, the good thing is, like I said, before the show, I'm hopefully going to be moving soon, like within a week. I'll know more Monday, so yeah, I can at least move to a spot, have more, have peace of mind.
Right.
It won't be so chaotic. So
Right. Yeah, I hope so. I hope that comes through. Like I was saying, you can't put a price on peace of mind. That's for sure.
yes, especially in today's day and
Right.
age.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Talking, about slavery, people just equate it to physical slavery. It's like, there are, have different ways of slavery. And
For
then
sure.
people will react to this. Oh, you're saying things are, bad compared to what physical slavery was. At least in that modality of physical slavery, majority of those people, like knew that something was wrong. The problem is now because in this mental slavery and the psychological slavery, people don't even see it, and that
Exactly.
and,
Yep.
and that's what makes it so much insidious. It's because the slaves don't see it, and they think that it is normal. They think that the conditions that are present are good, or they think that because the conditions have always been this way, that
Right.
what can I do? And hell, that's the problem. Is because these conditions people don't really see. That's why mental slavery is always have the worst, because you don't really have a chance to change those conditions if people have never even see the condition.
Right. Yep. Exactly. That's a great way to describe it. Perfect. Yep. Because and that's the thing I try to tell people. Like that's why it's so evil. That's I always say, is because you don't even people don't even realize they're a slave. Like they can't, because they don't see the chains. They don't see where that aspect of it. They don't realize that it's a slave. They're enslaving your mind. And so I think that's why people don't see it. I totally agree with what you're saying. That if they don't see it, they don't think it's there, kind of thing. And that's when you start looking into it and learning about natural law and all of these things that we're speaking about. You definitely, then it becomes very clear that humanity is enslaved for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And this would be the wisdom part, like of the trivium,
Okay.
in the external expressions, for the modality of love. Because this is the action, this is what we create with our hands. How another way that you can look at this is the knowledge being the mind, the the sovereignty, that would be like the heart, because that's internal. And then the freedom and slavery, that would be the hands. So you have the mind, heart, you know, and the hands, the thoughts, emotion, and actions. the threefold aspect of consciousness because this is how consciousness expresses itself to others in its thoughts, in its form of emotion, and in action and behavior.
Right.
So the three middle steps of the trivium are also to the three aspects of consciousness and how it expresses itself.
Right.
So
Yep.
so you have the individuals within that society who have aligned with freedom and have aligned to either slavery. So what is the effects that the universe is going to give you? Because remember, you have to you have to put natural law into the equation. So look at the external expression that is the free will choice that we are going to create. That
Yep.
free will choice is going to be aligned with freedom or with slavery. So based on that choice, the objective reality in the aggregate, natural law is going to give you that back which you put into it in the form of order, which will be good have manifested, or in chaos. And this is what everyone is going to get back. So if the majority of the people in that society are aligned with freedom, are aligned with sovereignty, aligned with knowledge and love, then the universe will give them back order, good manifested, good form of behavior, higher states of consciousness, higher states of unity, because you have put in the time, you put in the work, you put in that sacrifice. You are aligning your will with the true will of creation. So that would create good, that would create order. That is the true and divine way that things should be. Just as though if you ignore all of, of what we are talking about, you are still in that state of confusion. You are still buying into things like moral relativism. You are still buying into ideologies like solipsism. You are still buying into ideologies like nihilism. You are still buying into ideologies, like health, egoism, and authoritarianism. All of those are going to lead towards slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And then in the aggregate, because the external manifestation is slavery, the universe is going to give you more of that in the form of chaos. And you will have evil being you have manifested. Because you will put someone in charge to rule you, a psychopath, like a Caesar, a pharaoh, a president, a king.
Pope.
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
You, you can insert the name there because it's all slavery. It's all slavery. And people don't want to look at it that way.
Right.
They'll keep making up all forms of justification. Well, the Pope's been ordained by God. Well, someone has to rule. Well, things have always been this way. Well, you just want chaos in the streets and gangs, have taken over. It's like, don't we have a criminal cult, a criminal gang that has already taken over in the form of government?
Exactly. I hear that a lot. I hear that a lot. Oh, you want chaos? And I'm like, no, that's the opposite of what I want. Like,
Thank you. We have fucking chaos now, man.
yep.
Like if you don't think the world has been in chaos in the past 2 years, then you really need to do some soul searching. I mean,
Yep.
like really need to do some soul searching
For
because
sure.
because chaos has been increasing like tenfold within the past 2 years, and sadly, we all know that it's only getting worse. From what I'm seeing, how violence in the street is skyrocketing. That's another reason why I want to get away from this location that I'm at now because I think violent crime has gone up like 40% here within the past 2 years, like 40%, man. In some places, it's up like 60.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
big. That's huge. Wow.
yeah, and we're talking about like rapes, like uh, theft, like homicide. Like we're not talking about like lower crime or like we're talking about like prison sentences.
Right.
You like threats with violent weapons, man. Like yeah, like things are getting crazy, but it is only the reflection of the behavior that we are putting out that
Right.
natural law is giving us in the form of chaos.
Yep.
And we have government now, and yet we still have all of this chaos. So what exactly is the government doing outside of have lined its pockets with our own money,
Mm-hmm.
with our own tears, with the sweat and bloods from our grandkids that aren't even born yet.
Yep. And that's the one thing that I want to bring up too, Brandon. I was just talking to somebody on another podcast, and we were talking about the convoys that we've been seeing happening. They kept saying, "Why is nothing changing? Like, why? I mean, you have everything going on in the world. There's rallies going on. There's is people starting to kind of speak out, like they don't like what's going on with all the mandates, with what's been going on for the last couple of years. And no matter what they do with all these protests and that, nothing changes. And I had to try to explain to them that, and it ties in nicely with what we're talking about here, because I tried to explain to them it's not changing because we're not addressing the real problem. We're trying to change something in the realm of effect, which you can't change it in that. Nothing's going to change in that realm. We have to get to the root of the cause, which is what we're talking about right now, which is objective morality, natural law. And until people start learning about this and applying it into their life, we're never going to change anything in that realm of effect. Like it's already in effect. It can't be changed. We have to go back to the root cause. And it ties in nicely with what we're saying here, because people are not living, they're not looking at it that way. They're trying to just fix it immediately by these rallies and stuff like that. So it ties in really nicely, Brandon, to what we're speaking about here.
Yeah. And I'm going to get rid of the slide and bring my
Okay,
screen.
yep, go ahead. And you can either bring it up.
But yeah,
All right, let me just go ahead and change mine. There we go. We're back on here, guys. How you doing? That was a great slide, Brandon. Great slide.
like to kind of get into the realm of the effects and why people aren't really seeing change. Um, you have to you have to ask yourself where in reality is everything created? This laptop, tell myself, this this microphone, where was it all created? Like where did it all begin? Where does it have its origin? Did the shit just manually I'm sorry, how magically pop into existence? Or like how did it fart its way into existence?
Yep.
How like did it just like magically poof? Like no. It was created in someone's mind.
Yep.
Hell, everything was created within the mind.
Yep.
It may not be the mind of individuals, but hell, this reality in and of itself is just one giant living mind. Hell, one giant big ass hell consciousness.
Yep.
That's that's constantly creating and is constantly hell destroying. Because everything is connected. So we have to look at that and ask ourselves, what is it that we are really trying to change, and are we getting to the root? Because just going and marching to your state capital and holding up some flyers, how long does that last? Maybe a few hours,
Yep.
maybe a few weeks, and then you got to go back to work. You got bills to pay. Most people aren't really going to make that sacrifice and stay, weeks, months. They don't have the resources,
Yep.
but where the true change lies is in here. Another way you can look at this is, how we have people who have those New Year's, resolutions.
Yep.
They'll say, "Oh, I'm going to stop, like drinking soda, or I'm going to start exercising," and they think that just magically, they're going to change overnight. But they never really got their mind right. They never took in the information. They never really got rid of the programming that was that was holding them back. They
Right.
never really changed the environment. They never changed the conditions. They never changed the conditions. So therefore, they are trying to operate on conditions that were already pre-programmed and were already hardwired and set in stone.
Yep.
Humanity will always revert back to its program. Rather the programming be good, or rather the programming be bad.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason why we don't see help for any change is because we're trying to change something from the physical realm that is happening now, compared to if you change the mental realm. How your thoughts, how how what you believe, how what you think is true,
Yes.
how the whole mind principle, then that will lead to a change within yourself, the emotional realm,
Yep.
and then that will lead to the change in behavior, because that is where we are control. We are not controlled on the physical realm. We are controlled on the mental realm. So that's
Yep.
why Many people have said this is a mind war. This is the information war
Yep.
because they control the information, they control your mind, they control the words, they control the way you communicate, they can control the way you think. That's why we see, with everything going on, we still seeing the propaganda, we're still seeing the ads, we're still seeing shit flash on screens.
Yep.
We're seeing this shit flash on social media because they understand that your mind is going to take in the information. You are going to take in the information with your senses, and you are going to perceive that information into reality. So they think they can control reality by controlling the information that we take in, which is,
Exactly.
I mean, like it is a dark way to look at it, but it is true.
It's the
Like,
truth. It's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. That's why they want to control their narrative, and anyone who is speaking out, they want to censor them because they can control the information. Because the less amount of people who are taking in the information and knowledge, then that's going to lead to certain behaviors that they want to stir you down, and certain behaviors that they don't want you to have. You
Right.
know,
Yeah, and that's what I tried. That's what I was explaining. And like I said during that interview, is that's why we're not seeing anything change in the world with these protests and stuff like that. Like, because we're not attacking it at the root problem, as you so perfectly said. And that's what I was trying to tell them too. When I was in the talking with them, I was saying that nothing's going to change in this. What you're seeing like nothing's going to change until we started. People have to start going inward and changing themselves and the way they think and what's inside them. And that once you start doing that work, which I call shadow work, and you start getting into learning all about that, then you're going to start making an effect on the world. But until we address the problem, the root problem, which is ourselves and the way we think and the way that we are expressing ourselves, nothing, it's not going to change. It's only going to get worse. And that's what's happening. We're seeing it get worse, you know?
yeah,
So,
because that root level, that traumatic experience, that that aspect about ourselves that we may not feel comfortable with, that psychological defense mechanism that we didn't know how to cope with, that experience that we didn't know how to deal with at an early age. That part was never really healed. That part was never really changed. That part was never really worked with. So that is going to be that one aspect of ourselves that's always going to be holding our own self back. So that's why we say in the mental world, because that's where that trauma is going to, start to root itself.
yep,
It's in your mind. You know, hell, we all know that traumatic person, who's going through some form of trauma, and they don't want to, constantly bring it up to that conscious level. So they'd rather forget about it. It's like, no, it may be, a hardcore thing for you to do. We're not saying constantly, relive it, but you have to become aware of it. You have to bring it up to that surface. It has to be healed with. It has to be dealt with. It has to be worked with. It can't just continuously be ignored. Because just imagine ignoring everything else, and that may present itself in society. I mean, imagine humanity still ignoring her natural law. Well, what are going to be the consequences of
yep,
ignoring natural law? It's like you are seeing things deteriorate and break down within your area. What's going to happen if you ignore it? Are things going to get better? Fuck no.
nope,
Things are only going to continue to get worse and worse because ignoring something is not getting to the root. It's not going to change anything.
right, right. Yeah, and
And
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead. I'm just reading my notes.
oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I was going to say, just go back to that chart. Ignoring was ignorance. It is on that fear modality.
Right.
So that's not the state. That's not the mindset. We want to be on the opposite end of the love, knowledge, sovereignty, freedom, and order. So always revert back to the chart.
Oh,
The
for
natural
sure. Yes,
order.
I totally agree. I mean, the chart says it perfectly. Like, and I was just looking at my notes because I want to make sure I cover everything, and I definitely want to cover like we were talking about the expressions of natural law and consciousness and stuff. I think that's important that we talk about that, because I really want to hammer that into people's heads, that's why humanity is in the state that we're in, is because people do not understand natural law. They're certainly not living by it, and people aren't conscience. God, that's a hard word for me to say. It always has been conscience.
Yeah.
All right, there we go. Sorry, guys. It's one of those words that I just have problems with. I'm sorry. But yeah, so I mean, I think people, and I definitely don't see people thinking in that state, and they're just in that fear state where they keep us and reacting. And I think this information is so valuable, Brandon, that you're bringing to this interview and teaching people, because I know that it's the way that we're going to get out of this mess. It's just trying to convince other people that this is what has to take place, and it takes work, and people have to be willing to take the time and put the work in. And then and I had to learn to myself. It's one thing to take in the information, but that's not the whole. Once you understand the information, take it in and process it and all of that thing, that's not the end of it. You have to put that information out there. That's the final step that I think that people aren't doing enough of, is putting the information out there.
Yeah. Because what good is it to know everything in the universe if you don't act upon it, if you don't use it?
Yeah, yeah,
It's like it's just waste. You know.
exactly.
And I know the first time we talked, I had defined what a right is.
That's important too. That's a good point, Brandon. I wanted to ask you about that, because I ask people all the time to define what a right is, and they can't do it. They literally can't do it. So that's great. I want you to please define what a right is so people know.
And also, too, you can apply this to a natural law expression. So I'm going to pull up another slide.
Yep, perfect. Once you do, I'll just go switch it on my screen here. So, all right, hold on. Perfect. Go ahead. We got it full screen here for you.
All right. So, all right.
All
It's funny
right.
how, yeah, now the words, will tell us what's going on. So when we hear the word right, Right, then what typically comes to mind? Because we can say things as far as linguistically, 2 plus 2 is 4. That is correct. Well, why is it correct? Because it is based in truth. We all know that that is true, just as though we know that if we say 2 plus 2 equals 5, we know that is wrong because that is incorrect, because that is something that is based on something that is not true.
Hmm.
So you look at a right in the phonetic sense as language in verbal is if it is true, it is correct. Right and correct are, have mean the same thing. They are synonymous. So if something is correct, it is right. Just as though we say if something is right, it is moral. So not necessarily talking about phonetic language. We're talking about action. So to do a right action means it is correct, means it is moral. But why is it moral? You always have to ask yourself, why is it so? So why is a right action correct? Why is it moral? And the reason for that is because it is in harmony with natural law. The actions don't initiate violence or harm, and harm would be theft to another sentient being. Actions don't initiate violence or harm, and harm would be theft to another sentient being. That's what we mean when we are talking about rights. So when we say that people are losing their rights, people are losing their understanding of what rights are, because there's an infinite amount of rights. You have an infinite amount of rights, just as each individual has an infinite amount of rights. You would never, ever, ever be able to list them all.
Right.
No, that would be impossible and illogical to be able to, be able to list all of your rights.
Right. And
So
that's a crazy thing too, Brandon. When you tell people what a right is, that it's uh, and you give them the definition. It's such a simple definition, and but people don't know it, and that's what I always say. Like, people are losing their rights because they, like, how can you defend something if you don't even know what it is? And I remember first hearing about that challenge from Mark Passio, where he said, just go ask people to give you a standard definition of what a right is, and just see what they say, and you're going to find that most people don't know the definition of a right. So I took that challenge. I always do when I hear Mark do one of those challenges. And I went and started asking my family and my friends. I was just like, give me the definition of a right. And I was shocked, Brandon, that people couldn't do it. They could not give us the
Yep.
standard definition.
Yep. And then you have so many people, saying, "Oh, we're losing our rights," which is true, but they don't go further and define what rights are. And
Right.
like you say, how can you protect something, that which you can't define?
Yep.
So, how when we look at rights, they are universal. We all have the same amount of rights. It doesn't matter if you are clergy. Doesn't matter if you are in a satanic cult called government. Doesn't matter if you are a homeless person on the street. It doesn't matter if you are a teacher. It doesn't matter if you are a engineer. It doesn't matter if you are a umpire. It doesn't matter who you are. We all have the same amount of rights
Right.
because these rights are objective. And like we've said, they don't come from man. They aren't granted by man. They aren't created by any government. They aren't created by any one sovereign entity or a group of people. And they don't come from any paper. So,
Yep. They come. They're given to us all from nature. That's
right.
where we get them. Yeah. 100%.
So another way to understand what rights you have is to understand what rights you do not have. And we call those wrong or wrongdoings. And like I said earlier, in the phonetic language sense, if we say 2 plus 2 equals 5, that would be wrong because that is incorrect based on lies. So when it comes down to action, when it comes down to behavior, because we're always dealing with people, what is a wrong and why is an action wrong? Or why is an action immoral? Because it is incorrect, because it is in opposition to natural law, meaning the actions that the individual brought about, the actions that the individual created, the actions that the individual initiated, yeah, initiated were based in violence, were based in harm to other sentient beings. So pretty much, you was the aggressor. You was the person that transgressed. You was the person that brought violence. You was the person that stole. You was the initiator. You was the instigator in coercion. Because every wrongdoing that we can do involves coercion,
Mm-hmm.
violation of free will. Saying, hey, if you don't do this, I'm going to do this. That's coercion. If
Yep.
you don't go get this this medical experiment, then we are going to do this. That's coercion. If you don't pay your taxes, we're going to send a goon squad after you. That's coercion. If you don't support Ukraine, then we're going to do this to you. That's coercion. Means of duress, threats, because every form of threat is like is coercion because you were taking the choice hell away. And the one thing that I learned from Chris Jansen, which everyone should go out and check out his work
For sure.
in Evil God Life. When I asked him to define what evil is, he defined it as, the destruction of life, the destruction of creativity, the destruction of freedom, and the destruction of free will, the destruction of choice.
Mm-hmm.
Because that is what evil is. It's coercion. It is fucking coercion.
Yep.
And and that's what every wrongdoing is. And we are constantly involved in coercion daily. Because when someone says, hey, I think that government should be how necessary. That's coercion because government is coercion.
Yep.
Government is violence. So what you are saying is government is necessary. What I am hearing is coercion, violence, and slavery is necessary. And remember, if we all have the same amount of rights, then wouldn't that mean we all have the same amount of wrongs when it comes to wrong behavior and actions?
Mm-hmm.
So you would understand it doesn't matter who does the coercion. It doesn't matter if it is a priest. It doesn't matter if it is a janitor. It doesn't matter if it is a Hollywood celebrity. It doesn't matter if it is a satanic politician. It doesn't matter who the individual is. The coercion is morally wrong.
Yep.
So I think now people can start to see why understanding this is so powerful and so
Yes.
meaningful. Because in understanding this, then you truly, universally will understand what a true wrong is, and that no individual has the moral right to do any wrong. It doesn't matter what their reason is. It doesn't matter what their title is. It doesn't matter what their relationship is. It doesn't matter what their justification or excuse is. It is always immorally wrong.
Yep. Yep. And that's the problem going on in the world too, Brandon, is moral relativism is rampant.
Yeah,
Like it's just people just I mean, I want to go and ask people like what their definition of morality is. I'm going to do that next time I'm out, and just like
good
I
luck
did
with
with
that.
asking people what a right was. I'm going to ask them if they can define morality because I'm pretty sure they're not going to be able to.
Right. Yeah. Well, good luck. With to ask these questions because
You
like
already know the answer I'm going to get. I
yeah,
know that.
yeah. Trying to talk to people like one on one, man, it is a lot. Like
Yeah.
I'm not saying don't do it, but it hats off to anyone who does it. You know, they'll
Well,
always try to fight my battles, by putting out free information because you know I've tried doing the whole on one stuff and it is tasking,
it is.
task.
Yeah.
And then the funny thing that I've learned is when people start to go deeper and then you start to explain to it how they react like this. So you're saying that I'm wrong. So you're saying that I'm immoral.
Mm-hmm.
And my answer is, yeah, I am.
Yep.
Like that's the funny thing is when you see that shit click within them, then you see a change. You see a reaction. You see that things can possibly get physical because people don't like being told you're wrong. You are immoral. Like like face to face.
Yep.
Like it can get dangerous. It 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 really can get dangerous. So hats off to you because it does take a lot of courage.
Yeah.
And how that's one thing that we're constantly talking about is people may think that talking hell about these things are easy. It's hell, once you get it, it's easy. It's trying to relate to other people, then that's when the
Yes.
this happens.
Yes, and I wanted, if you have time, I know that I'm just keeping my eye on the time here because I do know that you uh, have to go to work soon, and I really thank you, Brandon, for taking the time to talk with us today because as I keep saying, and you've said, this is so important. This is the glue that people have to realize is putting it all that holds it all together, and until people understand natural law and objective morality, and that there are such thing as rights that are inherent in nature and that are given to us by the Creator, we're never going to get out of this mess, and it's just going to keep getting worse. And I've always told people that for me, when I started taking in this knowledge, that it was the shadow work that I did on myself that really made the difference. I had to land, as you explained during this presentation or this interview, I should say, is that it's internal. You have to start working on yourself and go within yourself if and confronting the things that are troubling you and your traumas and stuff, and you have to start taking this information in and then doing the work on yourself. I just want to get, like, can you let people know how important that is to do the shadow work on oneself, like, just so people realize that it's serious and it has to be done to get to if we want to start manifesting the results that we all say that we want to see in the world.
Yeah, because ultimately what we're talking about is healing. You know, healing our fractured, scattered self. Because the human psyche is going through a lot. But it can it can bounce back. It is
Yep.
very like our psyche is very elastic. You know,
Yes. Yep.
it can it can suffer some trauma, it can suffer some injury, but it can always bounce back. You know, what we are talking about is healing ourselves to be full, to have integrity, a form of wholeness. You know, separation only creates more division. It only creates more negative manifestations of energetic frequencies
Mm-hmm.
because there is no coming together. And remember, if you look at the universe, it is all based on unity. That's why it's called a universe. Una
Yep.
meaning one, verse meaning hell, it's already one chain. Hell, that's really what the word means is one chain. So one big change. But is that one change going into the realm of unity, of harmony, which that's our nature is always, operating. You can either harmonize with nature or you will suffer the consequences of not harmonizing with nature.
Right.
So are we going to unify with ourselves and then start to unify with each other? The as above, so below, her concept is you can't harmonize with other people if you have not harmonized with yourself. You can't give something to someone if you don't have it, help
Right.
yourself. So that's why the shadow work is important, is because we are still focusing on the external. We are still looking forward, for saviors. We are still looking forward, for other people to come and rescue us. Rather than if we point that finger in and we look within that mirror, we heal our own selves. That is what's going to bring us that internal fortitude, that internal strength for whatever, problems come after that. Because there's always going to be problems that present itself.
Right.
Help
Yeah.
even if we somehow could change the tide and people understood natural law and we create a true world based in freedom and morality, there still will be problems. you know,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
so it's having that internal fortitude to not just want to to not just want to run away or to not just want to put that
Right.
responsibility on someone else. Doing that shadow work is going to be that internal work that's going to give you that armor to where no matter what comes your way, you will be able to handle it because
Right.
you will be a more whole, a more integrated individual. And you will have the concept, you will have the tools, you will have the technique, you will have the gnosis, and you will have the power. And you will have the drive to look at whatever circumstance is presented and you will say, I can make it through that.
Right.
That's
And
why that
yes.
shadow is so important.
And you're exactly right too, because once you start learning this and doing the shadow work on yourself, as you stated, there's always going to be problems that arise in the world. I 100% agree that that's just going to be that's life, and but knowing the knowledge of what we're talking about and doing the work on yourself, it's going to dictate how humanity reacts to these problems that arise. And are we going to be reacting in fear? Are we going to be acting with consciousness and you know proper thoughts? And that's drastically, those two reactions are going to dictate what the outcome is, what's going to come out into our world. And so it's very important to do that work, because it, as I said, it's going to dictate how we react to these problems as they arise. And I think that most people are reacting we're in a reactive state in fear, and that's why we're getting what we have in the world now.
Yeah. And one last thing on the right and wrong, and I'm going to tie this in with,
Perfect.
about now and then. I'm going to get rid of tell this lot and get back to me.
Perfect.
It's the law of freedom is freedom and morality are harmonious with the understanding of objective morality and natural law. So, being the more individuals that come to this understanding and integrate it within their lives and within their own being and harmonize and manifest that, then we will start to create a world based in freedom. Just as though with the natural law expressions, freedom was the external expression. Well, the knowledge would be understanding of natural law and objective morality. So the more people who come to that right, correct, moral understanding, then the external manifestation would be freedom. Just as though in the aggregate, the the more we align to immoral behaviors, incorrect, wrong, immoral, behaviors, we are going to create a world based in slavery and chaos
Yeah.
because immorality and slavery are harmonious with each other. The more and more people that become more immoral and align to that, then expect slavery to help increase because as immorality increases, then so will slavery and chaos by law.
It has to
By
happen that
law.
way. It has to.
Correct.
Yep.
Yep. Yep, by law. And if people don't understand that, hey, go back to the One Great Word Network and just start watching those videos. Go to a natural law playlist that I have on my Odyssey and YouTube channel. Because the information is out there. Stop making excuses. Stop making excuses. Get
Right.
off your lazy ass and take in this information. Because
100%.
don't think that we have like all the time in the world to set things straight. It's like no, hell, sadly time is running out.
I agree. Yeah, and I can. Yeah, and I do. I fear what's coming down the pipe. You know what I mean? I really don't think people realize what if we continue down this path, what kind of what's coming down the pipe for us. As I just said. Sorry, I repeated myself, but that's I just don't think people realize that it can get a lot worse. I think people kind of thought with what's happened over the last couple of years, like that's pretty much the worst it can get. And I want to tell people it can get a lot worse, and it is going to get a lot worse if people do not start taking this information in and learning about it and putting it into practice.
It could get 100 times worse.
Exactly.
There's th- there's a lot of things that can happen. Like either the social engineers, have their cars to play. Hell, and hell, let's not forget we're going through a lot of solar cycles. So hell, maybe the sun, how the generator of everything is trying to let us know something. There's a lot of things, how that can happen. But ultimately, what happens, we are still the ones who are in control of it. Rather it be the social engineers or some form of like massive solar flare. We still are the ones who are in control of this because it is our consciousness that is steering and 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 guiding
Hmm.
how this energetic flow in this like in this universe right here.
Yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree, and thank you so much, Brandon. I know I'm gonna wrap it up because I know you got to get ready for work. So I want to definitely thank you for coming and talking about natural law, talking about objective morality, and you're definitely welcome to come back anytime to cover some other topics. Uh, I would love to have you back to continue passing this knowledge on and information. And just to wrap it up, let everybody know, Brandon, where they can find you, any information that you want to put out there so people can find your work. The floor is yours.
Sure. And thank you. I am on the Odyssey platform, just Brandon Spencer. I upload a lot of my presentations, a lot of my chats with others, and I also upload other occult, psychological, philosophical, you know, videos that have helped me along in my journey. And I'm just putting the information back out there so that other people can at least have that same means. You don't have to go down the same path that I did, but at least the information is available. So if you want to dive deeper in some of these discussions, have my Odyssey platform is a good way because there's like 500, 600, have different posts, have some different videos that people can check out. And
Okay.
then I'm on YouTube, which I don't really advertise my YouTube too much just because of the whole censorship and shit. But I do have a natural law playlist on Odyssey and YouTube, which is a lot of my videos and a lot of other people's videos on the One Great Word Network. And I am on BitChute. You can you can find my links by just typing in my name, and then also on the One Great Word Network, along with the other wonderful content creators. There are thousands upon thousands of videos on that platform. So it's really like a one a one website have to go to if people really wanted to educate themselves because there's thousands of videos on the One Great
Yes.
Word Network, and there's a lot of different topics. So it's not just natural law. Hell, you got some people that are talking about, the whole dynamic of the family structure. You got a lot of people that are talking about, creativity, beauty, dance, just being able to express yourself. Um, because you don't have to do it in the means that we are doing. So, hell, Mark Passio and his team have done a wonderful job in bringing all of these content creators together because it is just a good place for people to just have a different means of opinion. Because you may not want to hear it from me, you may not want to hear it from Mark, you may not want to hear it from Will Keller. but you may want to, pick it up from, Chris Jansen. You may want to, pick it up from John. You may want to pick it up from, Cat Waters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a bunch of different flavors, and you just have to find one person or a few people who you resonate with, and you get the information from them.
Yep.
So,
It's
but it's
amazing.
all,
Yeah.
yeah,
Amazing, amazing website. And I'll make sure, Will, too, that I leave all the links for your sites in the description below. So that way, anybody wants to check out your work, I'll make sure there's links to everything you mentioned. And that way, they can come
thank
and check out your work. And I suggest that you guys do because he's putting out some amazing content. And I love watching his videos. I'm learning so much. And so definitely please check out Brandon's sites. I will, like I said, leave links in there. And I just want to thank you, Brandon, for like I said, taking the time here. I appreciate it so much. I know you're busy, and I'm just happy that we could do this interview. And I'm happy I got you on the radio show because, like I said, I got great feedback from that interview that I did with you. So it's good to see, as you said, there is people out there hungry for this information and willing to take it in and listen. We just have to get more people putting the information out there. Is the task that we're having to deal with.
yeah, yeah.
You know, but
Depending
so
on, yeah,
yeah.
more that can make it easier.
Oh, for sure, right? Yeah. So, yeah, is there anything else you want to say before you go, or before I wrap it up? Is there any, or do you think you covered what you wanted to cover today, or what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think I hit some pretty good points.
For
We could
sure.
hopefully try to get people to take this information that we are talking about and apply it to reality. And then
Right.
also too, if you want to dive deeper, then go and check out Mark Passio's documentary, The Science of Natural Law.
Yes.
If people are
Amazing.
saying that, yes, if people are saying his natural law seminar, seminar is too long, okay, I think that documentary is like an hour and 10 minutes.
Yep.
That should be able to plant the seeds, because he's asking a lot of questions. He's getting you, to think. So it isn't just him talking. It is you get to see the reaction from just normal people
Mm-hmm.
and how they think, and can they define, how natural law is? Can they define what objective morality is? Just simple questions that we all should be asking
Yep.
ourselves. And I think people will very, very get a better understanding by watching the
Right.
science of law with Mark Pascal.
I
You know,
agree, and it's only like you said. It's only I think, as you said, an hour and 10 minutes. So there's no excuse, right? I
yeah,
mean, everybody can take an hour out of their day to watch this, and I suggest that you guys do. So yeah, definitely check out Mark Passio's YouTube channel. He's also got What on Earth is Happening. You can go whatonearthishappening.com, and you can go and check that out. He's got a podcast on there. Definitely check that out. There's so much information out there, as Brandon said, and people have to be willing to take the time to look into it. And I hope you guys do that. And I hope you guys enjoyed this interview with Brandon. Thank you, Brandon. I keep saying thank you, but I really do appreciate you taking the time to come and talk to me and everyone else today. So have yourself a great day, and you're always welcome back, my friend.
thank you. Yeah, thank you for inviting me back on to your wonderful platform.
You're very welcome, and I will definitely keep in touch with you, and I will have you back on for sure.
All right.
All right, peace, brother. Take care. Well, there we go. Another amazing, important interview is what I should say. Another important interview that I had to ask Brandon to come on and actually break down for us because I was telling Brandon, I talked to a lot of people about natural law, and they as I keep saying, they keep having this other idea in their head of what natural law is and what it means. So I thought, why not have somebody on here that I can have a discussion with? And I thought Brandon would be great to do that. He did a great job, had a couple slides for us to look at, and he broke it down perfect. And I hope it's something that you guys definitely take the time to look into because it will change your life when you start looking into this information. And you'll open your eyes, for one thing, and you will definitely see that what is going on in our world right now is nothing short of it's slavery and chaos. And when people think that they're going around living free, I don't know. It just boggles my mind when people think that we're living in a state of freedom because when you start looking into this and really get a perfect idea of what's going on in the world and seeing the results of what the actions of people are manifesting, it's anything but freedom. In my opinion, it's not. And I think it's just not. So I think that people just have to start taking the time and, as Brandon said, want to take in this knowledge. And I think once people do, is when we're going to start seeing the change. People have to be willing to sacrifice the time and look for this information and seek it out. And then, once they've done the work on themselves, as we were saying, and the shadow work on themselves and taking in this information and then processing it, then we have to start putting it out there. That's kind of the final thing that I don't think a lot of people are doing is, yes, a lot of people may be taking in this information and have a great understanding of it, but then what are they doing to get that information out there? And I mean, you can talk to your family and a couple of your friends and that, but are you really you're not going to, how much change you're going to get doing it that way? This is where we have to realize that, technology can be used for nefarious reasons or it can be used for a positive reason. And I think that's where people have to realize that we can take this technology and use it against the social engineers that are against us, these, and these dark psychologists and that are just tearing apart humanity, right? I mean, so let's turn it around. And if you have this information and knowledge, put it out there. There's so many different ways. There's doing it this way. There's interviews, there's podcasts, there's radio, art, you name it. There's so many different ways you can do it. But the more people we have out there doing this work and talking about this information and trying to educate people on it, we might level a playing field a little, because right now we're not. And just look around, as me and Brandon were saying, just look around at what is happening in the world now, and it doesn't take any genius to figure out that we're not living in freedom and that we are definitely living in a state of slavery. And it's not going to change until people start taking in this information and doing the work on themselves first, because it starts in the mind. People have to start changing their minds and educating themselves and then going out into the world and changing it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this interview. Just to wrap up, you guys know you can find me at Revolution Radio every Monday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's Studio A. And just go, like I said, to freedomslips.com. And I have a lot of amazing guests. We're covering all of these topics that we're covering here. And I love having these guests on the radio show because it's another audience that we can talk to. So I really hope you guys will go there and check that out. I will leave, like I said, description or links, I should say, in the description box for you guys to check out Brandon's work and to all the sites that he mentioned, because I definitely hope you guys will take the time to go and check out his amazing work. He's putting some great stuff out there. So just thank you guys. I really, really appreciate you all who tune in and watch these interviews. And, if you want to send me some comments on it, or you want to come on as a guest and discuss natural law or any of these other topics, I'm not hard to reach. Just send me an email at binthinkingpodcast@gmail.com. And, we can just chat that way, or we can talk on Skype or whatever. It's not hard to get a hold of me. So if you just want to chat about the topics we're covering here, that's cool too. I'm open to chatting to people. So if that's the way you want to do it, then send me an email. I'm all for that, for sure. So just want to let you guys know that, trying to think if I should. No, I'm not going to say nothing yet. I'm going to wait till I actually set it up a little bit more. So I was going to kind of give a hint to something, but I want to make sure that it's actually set in stone before I do. So never mind there. But I hope you guys have a great day, great evening, wherever you guys are. Time zones mess me up. So, and just remember, you have an interesting story. And I always say, why does it make it interesting? Because it is your unique story. And that is what makes it interesting to me. So take care, guys, and I'll see you next time. Thank you for taking the time to listen, and I'll see you very soon. Peace, guys.
Are you interested in the paranormal? Murder mysteries? Cryptocurrency? And thought-provoking interviews? Then check out Crypt Rick's I've Been Thinking on YouTube, or every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Studio A at Revolution Radio, freedomslips.com. Welcome to the Crypt.